going on, Grinders? Welcome to the weekend edition, Memorial Day weekend edition of Grinders Live, sponsored by DraftKings. I am Boggs Light, and I'm joined by my co-host, Justin. You know him better as STL Cardinals 84. Cards, what's going on, man?
Howdy, good to be on with you on a Saturday, and actually just posted something on the forums since you mentioned it being Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully a site decides to come out and have a nice GPP offering for Memorial Day. It's kind of a baseball holiday, but with the staggered start for all the games, sometimes it's hard to get the sites to offer big GPPs. But with everyone, being off work and it being a great day for baseball, hopefully one of the big sites decides to step up and have a nice offering for Memorial Day. So we'll see what happens with that. But for now, we've got a pretty dreadful six-game slate on a Saturday night, but we'll try to extract some value out of the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not the easiest of nights to play tonight, but I think it's actually presents a good opportunity because on some sites it's really easy to make some teams. On other sites it's not so easy. Obviously, pitching being the most important aspect of building a roster, there's a couple few options that kind of stand out to the rest. But before we jump into that, I completely agree. I think that's a tremendous idea. I definitely think one of these sites, perhaps our sponsor DraftKings, will step up and have something big. I know a lot of people like to go out of town for the weekend, but a lot of people, myself included, just like to hang out, relax, and really just enjoy the extended weekend. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into tonight. You mentioned we got 6 games. Who are you liking at starting pitcher?
Yeah, I'm kind of gravitating towards 3 or 4 guys tonight. It's interesting because all the games have projected totals between 6.5 and 7.5. So there's really not a lot of offense projected out there tonight, which makes it really hard to find quality bats. It also makes it relatively easy to slot one or two of the top starting pitcher options tonight in your lineups. And anyone who's followed me for any length of time knows that I am not a Strasburg fan by any means, and I'm also not a fan of the Pittsburgh Bats. So whatever wins tonight, I guess I'm siding with Strasburg. I know he tends to struggle a little bit more on the road, so that has me worried a bit. But he's got great career numbers against the Pirates and something along the lines of a 16 Ks per 9, something like that. And the Pirates really struggle with the strikeout against right-handed pitching. It's a tough park to hit in, so I've got a lot of exposure to Strasburg tonight simply because it's pretty easy to fit him in. And if he doesn't meet value tonight or come close to it, I'll probably be at about my wit's end with him because this is probably the 3rd time I've taken him all year. He was unimpressive the last time out against the Reds, against a very depleted lineup there. But it seems like every time he's on the mound, it's a short slate or something that makes it really easy to fit him into your lineup. So that's the case again tonight. If it was a full slate, I'd probably try to find a way to work around him. But the circumstances being what they are tonight, I'll have a good amount of exposure to Strasburg for sure. I think the other pitcher in that game, too, is a solid option. The Nats lineup has been relatively weak since Bryce Harper went out, so I have a fair amount of exposure to Garrett Cole as well, and that is the game that has the 6.5 total. So projected to be the lowest scoring game of the night. I don't think you can go wrong with either pitcher in that game. And then if you want to go a little bit cheaper, it burned a lot of people last night targeting the pitcher against the Padres as Edwin Jackson was just flat out terrible. But that's about as many runs as the Padres have scored generally in about a week, 11 or 12 runs, whatever they ended up with last night. So I think Travis Wood could be a solid cheap option. Chances are the Padres don't approach that sort of run total again, especially at home. Let's see, I have it up on my phone. He's 7,700 on DraftKings, so I think he's definitely in play. I think you'll see some people on Ryan Vogelsong against the Twins, but I know he has great numbers of late, but he just doesn't strike out enough guys to warrant consideration from me, and he is always capable of just an absolutely poor performance. He has a lot of terrible games on his resume. I'd rather play it a little bit safer with some of these other more consistent options tonight. But I couldn't fault you if you wanted to go with him, certainly at home in that pitcher's park in San Francisco against a Twins lineup that's not that great. I think you could save some salary with Vogelsong as well. But for me, I'm leaning primarily towards Strasburg, Cole, and Travis Wood.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you. Pretty much throughout everything you said there. I did write an article earlier today. It's on the homepage, which was kind of geared towards more FanDuel a little bit more. And it's kind of funny because over there, I'm not so high on Strasburg and Cole because I could easily see that being a tight game throughout and neither pitcher getting the win.
Yeah, with FanDuel valuing the win so much, that's a different animal over there. Plus, Strasburg is, I think he's 10K over there. So, yeah, I agree with you in that. If you're looking at that site where the win is so important, for sure.
Yeah, and so basically getting to my point is the two guys I recommended over there are Scott Shields and Ryan Vogelsong. But I would agree with you that I don't think either are in the best spot over on our sponsor DraftKings tonight. Shields is definitely in play for me. I did mention in my article that whenever you get these rare 4 o'clock starts out here in Southern California, especially if it's sunny. I mean, I'm near the ocean, so it's a little overcast right now. But I did look at the weather, and the sunshine's supposed to be out near game time. There's some pretty intense shadows that come through there and make it really difficult for hitters, especially in the first couple innings of that game, which definitely gives the advantage to the pitchers. But that being said, the two top pitchers with the most strikeout potential for me tonight are Strasburg and Garrett Cole, like you mentioned. So over on DraftKings, they're my top 2 options. It's kind of strange. I've never really been in a situation like this, at least not one I can remember, where I've been so high on 2 pitchers, him and Vogelsong on one site, and not so high on 2 pitchers that are my top 2 on another site. That being said, I really think that Strasburg, Shields, and Cole are definitely worth their price tonight. Obviously, anything can happen. But both have been pitching much better. Strasburg, especially. I know his road numbers may scare you off him a bit, but either way, there's really few pitchers in the game that can be as efficient as Strasburg can when he's on. And you did mention that there are strikeouts scattered throughout the Pittsburgh Pirates lineup. They did get Russell Martin back last night. He's back in the lineup again tonight. Doesn't really scare me that much. But either way. Both these teams are dealing with some injuries. A couple players banged up that are even playing tonight. I just really think that targeting both those pitchers is actually not a bad strategy, even in GPPs tonight. I'm also with you on Vogelsong. The reason why I recommended it on FanDuel is because he's cheap, and I thought he was in a good spot to get a win. I certainly can't fault you if you're on him because this Minnesota team, they're very patient. They like to take pitches, which is why I was off Lincecum last night, since he's not very, he doesn't have the command that he once had. But Vogelsong's a guy that can, throw that first pitch strike, get ahead in the counts. Doesn't really have the stuff to bury hitters, but he can get the ground ball outs and go deep into the game. So if you're looking for a cheaper option, he's about as low as I would go unless you're planning on taking a risk with Travis Wood. Either way, I think they both have I think Wood definitely has the higher upside, but I would lean towards Vogelsong as a cheaper option, maybe as a cash game play if you need that salary relief. But either way, I'm not targeting either Cingrani or Jaime Garcia. And, the jury's still out on Matt Shoemaker, but either way, he's not going to rack up the Ks against this very patient and, high contact, I guess you could say, Kansas City Royals team. So I think it's definitely another one of these nights, short slate, where you pay it for pitching. And my top 2, like we said, I think we're in agreement, are Strasburg and Cole. But like we said, I definitely think that Shields is in play. Are you on Shields at all?
A little bit. I mean, I would agree that I think he's a better play on FanDuel, especially with the way the salaries are constructed over there. DraftKings, he's pretty high. I think he's almost 11K there. It's hit or miss. I mean, I think he's in play. Just I don't have as much exposure to him, I guess, as I would have thought. But you make a good point there about the shadows. With I don't. There's not too many games that start, like you mentioned, at that time of day. And I know, having experience in St. Louis a couple years ago, when it gets towards the later portion of the year, when the sun starts to set a little bit earlier, the games that would start in St. Louis at around 3 or 4 local time, you couldn't see. I mean, they even petitioned the league to not have games start at that time because it was just ridiculous. I mean, you'd see pitchers just salivating out there the first 3 or 4 innings because there was no shadows and then shadows, and I mean that's a big factor in the first few innings of games that start kind of pre twilight hours in stadiums that are built like that. So I might go pivot off of Strasburg on a few teams and throw Shields in here before the lineup's locked, because I would agree that that's definitely a circumstance that you can take into account.
Yeah, and while it's some of these pitchers are salivating, when those shadows and that sun breaks through, it's actually dangerous for them because they have a hard time reacting themselves to comebackers. I've seen a number of guys getting drilled by comebackers, and it's I don't know why they do it. Obviously, it's to kind of accommodate some of these teams coming in from the Eastern or Midwest, as they head back home. But either way, I'm not really a big fan of it, but it is something you can take advantage of. So
I mean, I'm assuming tonight that they just did it for TV. Are they on Fox? I'm assuming they're on Fox tonight.
They could be. I actually do not know that. I get all the Angels games, so I expect them to be on the local channel, but that very well could be. Either way, like we said, the game, it is a Saturday, so it's not like one of these random Tuesdays when occasionally they'll do it as well. But like I said, I'm not a fan of it just as a baseball fan. But either way, it's something you certainly can take advantage of when selecting your pitchers. So is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think we covered almost all the guys on the bump. I would agree with you. I'm not on either pitcher in Cincinnati tonight. With that game being in probably the best hitter's park of the day, Garcia just his second start off the DL, and Cingrani's basically a one-trick pony. He's got a great fastball, but he doesn't have any secondary pitches at this point in his career, and sometimes he really struggles with his command. That's not a recipe for a whole lot of consistent success, especially against a decent lineup. So I'm off of both those guys tonight.
All right, sounds good. Well, with that, let's move on to catcher. Who are you liking at backstop tonight?
Yeah, there's not a ton of options at catcher tonight, with a lot of the elite guys having played earlier, with the exception of Posey and Molina, who are both, a significant portion of your salary cap if you want to go that route. Couldn't fault you for that. The matchups are there. Like I mentioned, the Cardinals, the right-handed bats are the guys you want to target tonight against Cingrani. But I don't think I'm using, a high salary guy at catcher tonight. Probably a position for me to save a little bit. So I think you've got a few options. You've got Sal Perez in there against the young Shoemaker for the Angels. I think he's a solid option. And Devin Mesoraco batting cleanup for the Reds tonight. He got derailed there for about a month or 3 weeks when he was on the DL, but he has just been mashing this season and still, for whatever reason, kind of flying under the radar a little bit. He's batting cleanup for the Reds tonight, and why not? I mean, with the way he's hitting, probably still hitting over 400. I know he's close. Against Garcia, that's a nice matchup for him. So I think Mesoraco's kind of the guy if you want to pay up. You can still save a little bit from the Posies and the Molinas of the world. And I think he's a solid play tonight. Even against my beloved Cardinals, I'll be on him a little bit. Other than those two guys, I mean, you could just punt. The Seattle lineup just came out. Zunino's not playing tonight, so I would have originally recommended him. but I'm off him a little bit. I think you could also look to Ramos as well. I don't have him on any teams because I have a decent amount of exposure to Garrett Cole, but still batting cleanup for the Nats. So basically, you have three catchers tonight so far who are hitting in really good spots and aren't going to cost you the top dollar on the board, that being Perez, Mesoraco, and Ramos. And that's kind of the angle I think I'm going to take with most of my rosters tonight.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Mesorac was my top option, and he's not quite as cheap as it sounds like you're kind of making him out to be. He's not cheap by any means, but he's certainly a guy that at least through the 19 games he's played this season has been worth it. Almost every single time. He hit a home run in his last game, which was last night. And he's absolutely been mashing left-handed pitching. Dating back to last season, he's got an OPS over 900 against lefties. He's crushing them again this season. And Jaime Garcia has really not, rebounded. At least it was his first start and his last start. And he was obviously shaking off some rust, but he gave up 2 bombs. And now he's getting a start as his second start in, very hitter-friendly Great American Ballpark. If there's one game that I do think could ultimately be high scoring, I believe it's going to be this one tonight. So Mesoraco is my top option. A close second is Yadier Molina. I will say that Molina is probably not going to be as highly owned as you would anticipate him being, with such few catchers really available tonight. So in a GPP, I really think that, because of his price, a lot of people are going to be off Yadier Molina. But I do think he's in a similarly good matchup that Mesoraco is. So those are my top 2 options. If you're looking for some value a little bit more, Jason Castro, both Jason Castro and Sal Perez, I think are in good spots tonight. I'd give the edge to Perez a bit because he's in a little bit more of a hitter-friendly park. But obviously haven't seen that lineup out. If you want to, go all the way down and punt the position, 2 guys. You mentioned Zunino's out, so you do get John Buck in there. He's a guy that does have some pop. Isn't a guy that's gonna, hit for average by any means, but in a GPP, a guy that can definitely hit the ball out of the yard up against a weak lefty in Oberholzer. And I don't know if the Chicago Cubs lineup's out quite yet, but
I haven't seen it yet.
I think John Baker is going to get the start. I really do. Not like it really matters because he's not someone that he's just a backup catcher. Another one of these catchers that hit left-handed. The George Fabregas effect is what I call it. But he's a guy that's from San Diego, or I'm not from San Diego, but he spent some time with the Padres. Don't quite know if he ever faced Billy Buckner was actually with the Angels for a while, so probably never caught the pitcher he's going against if he does start. But at 2,300, if you want to absolutely punt the position and he's in the lineup, then that's someone that I would consider in a GPP if you're looking to load up elsewhere. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think I agree with Castro. I meant to mention him when he went through him. Houston's bats make sneaky plays tonight compared to most nights against Brandon Maurer. They certainly could score some runs. So I like Castro as well. And back to Mesoraco's pricing to round that out for a second. Yeah, on DraftKings, I was surprised to see him at 4,500. I didn't realize he was that expensive over there. On some of the smaller sites like Draft Day, he's only $5,250, and Star Street, he's only $5,600. FanDuel, respectable at $3,600. So DraftKings is actually probably where he's comparatively the most expensive, but it doesn't matter. I still think he's a solid pick tonight.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and move on to first base. Who do you like tonight?
Yeah, it's another. If you need another option at catcher, Joe Mauer gets a nice boost over there because on DraftKings because he's still catcher eligible as well as first base. So that would give you another option to spend up at catcher if you want to take him there. Kind of on the fence as to whether I would target him at first base, but if there's any night to do it, tonight would be one of those nights because the first base crop is a little bit thinner than you'd normally expect. With only the 6 games on the docket and several guys being taken off the board from earlier. Um, but I still think there's some guys that you can target. I'm trying to circle back and find that Angels lineup here real quick. So Crone is not playing tonight. I think Pujols is in play on some sites, probably more of a FanDuel pick where he's still a little bit lighter price than he is on some other sites. The 5,300 on DraftKings for Pujols, I don't think I would touch that against James Shields, or 5,200, I guess, on DraftKings. So that kind of takes care of your top options. I think Rizzo could be a sneaky pick tonight against San Diego. A guy that's been swinging the bat really well, actually homered out there in Petco Park the other night. And, the Cubs have been scoring a few more runs of late. So I do like Rizzo if you choose to go, kind of below the top guys, but still spend a little bit of cash. If you want to go with the Royals first baseman, I'd probably prefer Hosmer tonight, especially for cash games. He's a little bit more consistent. But other than that, I mean, you really have to think about it if you want to punt. I don't really care for any of the super cheap options tonight. And again, it would be lineup dependent. If we get a lineup that comes out that has a surprise in it from one of these West Coast games. Ike Davis is batting cleanup for the Pirates tonight. I don't know if I'm bold enough to touch that against Strasburg. I'm probably going to take one of the mid to top tier guys. Probably where I'm going to go with most of my teams this evening. But I can see the merit if you want to drop down to a guy like Hosmer. In GPP, maybe if you want to take a flyer on a guy like Ike Davis, I could see it, but I wouldn't do it for cash games.
Yeah, it's I'm with you, man. It's kind of it's just a very strange night in general. I mean,
Yeah, it's weird.
when's the last time first base of all positions has been so thin? Outfield's the same too, and we'll get to that in a bit. But that being said, there still are a few options that I do like. The good thing about our sponsor DraftKings is that you can, you have multi-position flexibility. So, guys like Alan Craig and even Todd Frazier, Pujols, I'm not sorry, Pujols, Joe Mauer, these guys that you can play them at catcher, first base, third base, and then, with Alan Craig, you can throw them in the outfield too. So that they are available at first base makes it a little easier. I really do think that, Rizzo, I don't think he's going to fly under the radar tonight. He's my top GPP option of the night. A guy was the franchise supposed to be the up and coming franchise player for the Padres before they traded him away in what was one of the most egregious trades I thought in Major League Baseball history. Talk about collusion. You get the general manager that drafted Rizzo or acquired him, and he goes off to be the president of the Cubs, and then his successor, who Jed Hoyer put a good recommendation for, absolutely gives Rizzo away. They did get Andrew Cashner back, but at the time Cashner was nothing more than a reliever and probably projected to be a closer at best. And he's turned things around. So the trade, it's not as lopsided as it was, but either way, Rizzo knows how to hit in Petco Park. I was a big fan of him when he was out here in Southern California, and he's got a good matchup against Billy Buckner. So I really think that you can't be too afraid of the ballpark because, like you mentioned, he hit a bomb the other night, and that was off a lefty too. So I know the numbers and the splits. He tends to hit righties better, and he's facing a righty, but he also tends to hit better at Wrigley Field. That being said, he's going to be my top option of the night because I think he's got the most potential. I really do think that, we'll get to third base to talk about Todd Frazier, but I also wouldn't fault you for taking Alan Craig. He's batting cleanup and going up against a lefty that has one pitch. Craig can hit the fastball. Hasn't been doing too much of it this year, but your whole Cardinals team really hasn't been doing too much of that this year. But he's certainly someone that if Cingrani doesn't have his stuff, we've seen it in that start he had before he went on the DL. He was getting absolutely crushed. It's coming when it comes out of Cingrani's hand. It's just about how effective he is at controlling his pitches in the strike zone. and whether or not his fastball is moving is how he has success. So in GPP, I really think Alan Craig is a solid option. Um, I really agree with you that I'm not liking Mauer's price over here on DraftKings tonight. I was all over him as my top first base option in cash games on FanDuel, and I wrote an article up about him. I think Mauer can have a solid night against Vogelsong. If there's one guy he's going to struggle with in that lineup, Vogelsong, it's going to be Joe Mauer.
I mean, is he still in the 2K in the 20s on FanDuel?
He's 2,900.
Yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a big difference in price between 4,700 on DraftKings and 2,900 over there. So, yeah, definitely more merit to taking him at first base on FanDuel.
Yeah, and then if you are looking to save a little bit of money, I really think Eric Hosmer has a really great price on DraftKings tonight. At 3,700, he's batting second in that lineup tonight, and once again taking on an unproven starter in Shoemaker. He's certainly someone that could be in for a big night as well. I also agree. I'm not really inclined to take a flyer on Ike Davis, despite the cheap price tag and the fact that he is batting cleanup. And you also got Greg Dobbs in the lineup there. And funny story, I've actually taken batting practice with Greg Dobbs before. I mean, obviously a great hitter, but I was throwing him BP on a high school field, but he was launching balls. Either way, he's more of a, he's probably going to get sent down or released once they get Adam LaRoche back here a couple days. But he was always someone that for the last few years made a living off being a pinch hitter, not necessarily a starter that can fire it up in a with a huge game. So I wouldn't venture down. I think you really want to pay up. About as cheap as I would go is Hosmer, and I'm really liking Rizzo tonight. Anything else you want to add?
No, fair enough. I think we covered most of the guys there.
All right, well, let's move on to second base then.
Yeah, I actually got a few options here. Probably more options at second base than there is at first tonight, which is a little strange. But I think you've got some high-dollar options against another lefty. Brilliant move, by the way, for Houston, throwing 3 lefties at the Mariners this weekend. Totally changes the complexion of the Mariners lineup when you throw a lefty against them. So, again, at the gigantically huge price tag that Robinson Cano has on DraftKings, despite production that would kind of warrant a 4,200 or 4,300 price tag. Not on him at 5,300 tonight. I still think he's a little bit overpriced there on DraftKings. So for my money, it's going to be a whole lot of Jose Altuve tonight. Again, mentioned liking those Houston bats against the pitcher that's out there for the Mariners tonight. Mauer doesn't strike anybody out, and Altuve is a great contact hitter. I think this is a great spot for him. He can definitely steal a base if he gets on, and he really is the engine of that Houston offense. So really liking him at 4,800 on DraftKings. He's probably the best play on the dollar for me. Otherwise, you can go a little bit cheaper. I think Seager, who's second base eligible on DraftKings, is an okay option against Oberholzer. And even another guy that hasn't done much this year, but I have a feeling that he could have some success against Garcia tonight. That's Brandon Phillips. You can get him at a really nice price tag across the industry as well. 3,900, I think, is a decent spot to target him. Another kind of mid-range option that I like tonight, a similar type of player to Altuve in that if he gets on, he's probably going to steal a base with a plus matchup tonight. That's Bonifacio for the Cubs. I'm not sure on all the sites where he's second base versus outfield eligible. I know on DraftKings he's eligible at both. 3,900 I think is a pretty good price tag for the likely leadoff man for the Cubs tonight. Their lineup isn't out yet, but I would assume he's going to be in there. So that's a lot of like 3,500 to 4K options. If you need to go under 3K on DraftKings, Valencia is in the Royals lineup tonight. I'm not a huge fan of targeting him against pitchers that he hasn't proven himself against. He always hits better against lefties. So I'm not on him tonight, but if you need a cap saver, I think he's hitting sixth for the Royals tonight, so at 2,800, you couldn't go wrong with that price tag. He's probably the number one target that I would recommend under that 3K range on DraftKings.
Yep, definitely. I got Jose Altuve as my top option. I'm with you. I'm not on Cano at that price. I'm not really on him pretty much across the industry. I really think that he's been overpriced. Certainly capable of hitting a left-hander, but it's just not the perfect situation to spend up $5,300 at a second baseman. So I'm going down to Altuve as my top overall option. You know, I wrote in my article today. He might be the first player in Major League history that's under 5'5". That's the most important player on his team. This guy is just really doing it all. Plays with a tremendous chip on his shoulder. Plays the game the right way. Someone I really like to watch. He's an exciting player. He can steal a base. He's got a little pop, and he is just such a tough out when you're pitching against him. It's even watching a couple at bats he had against King Felix last night, who was phenomenal. It was just like, come on, man. But yeah, Altuve's my top option, even though he's going against my boy Brandon Maurer. He said he doesn't strike anyone out. He struck me out in Little League when I played with him back in the day. But that was a long time ago. He's unfortunately been rushed into Major League Baseball. This is Maurer we're talking about. That's just really screwed up his development, and it's a sad thing to see because these guys, they think they're ready and they get in there, and Maurer just clearly doesn't have it yet at this stage in his career. So I'm definitely targeting Altuve. Going down, I would agree with you about Bonifacio. I would like to see who's catching for the Padres. If Grandal's back in there again, go ahead and fire up Bonifacio as a nice GPP option or a cheaper cash game option even. I know he's been struggling of late, but if Grandal's back there catching, he's someone that can be stolen on pretty easily. And
they almost always rotate days with their catchers, and it's not going to be Hundley because he got traded this morning. Grandal did catch last night.
If it's Rene Rivera, he's the better defensive catcher on that team. He's actually a really good defensive catcher, and someone that's not easy to steal off of. But either way, Bonifacio's got the speed. They've given Grandal, it's because he's coming back from a knee injury. That's why they don't want to play him back-to-back nights. But they have a couple times recently. So if Grandal's back in that lineup, you can go ahead and fire up Bonifacio. But if not, then I would turn to Brandon Phillips as my top GPP option, simply based on price. He's been swinging the bat a little bit better, and I just really think he's in a good spot, as are most of these Reds, going against Jaime Garcia, hitting in Great American Ballpark. Also, don't hate Jed Jerko as a GPP option. I know you're on Wood a little bit, but if you're not, he's someone that can hit a fastball and hit it a long ways. Definitely flies under the radar. And, he's picking things up a bit as well, and he's got a nice price. I also agree Danny Valencia does have second base eligibility on our sponsored DraftKings. Get to him more when we get to third base. But then you've also, as the cheapest option available, you've got Pedro Ciriaco all the way down there. And if you're looking to punt the position, it's really not a terrible pick for me because you do have Hank Conger back there catching for the Angels, and you also got Matt Shoemaker, a guy who really isn't that quick from home to first. So if Pedro Ciriaco can get on board, deep in that lineup, you can easily see him, especially if there's two outs, stealing the base, with the top of that order coming up behind him. So he could be a cheap source of steals tonight. That's really, all I've really wanted to bring up. Is there anyone we missed?
No, I think that's about it. If we can roll right into third. Interesting options kind of all around the same price tag on DraftKings tonight. I know Frazier's one of your favorite plays of the night, so I'll save him for you to discuss. Other options besides him that are kind of around the same price tag, there's really nobody right now that's hitting the ball, and I said this yesterday, and he went deep again last night. There's not a lot of players that are seeing the ball right now better than Pablo Sandoval. His price has started to come up, but he's still super cheap on FanDuel, like $2,900. So I think Sandoval will be a highly owned guy over there. 4,100 or 4K, I guess, on DraftKings. Hit or miss at that price there, but DeNuno or whatever his name is, pitching for Minnesota, certainly a guy that you could target. I haven't mentioned a lot of Giants bats yet, but Sandoval, I think, with the way he's hitting right now, definitely in the conversation tonight. So I like him. And another thing, if you're not on Travis Wood, Chase Headley has really good numbers against him in his career. I think a 400-plus average with a couple home runs in somewhere between 15 and 20 at bats. So those two guys, if you're not on Frazier, or if you're playing Frazier at first base on DraftKings, Headley and Sandoval kind of around the same price tag that I think would be good options, especially for GPPs. With the way Sandoval is hitting and the way Headley has hit in the past against Travis Wood. So those two guys I have a fair amount of exposure to. Obviously, we've talked about Valencia and Siriaco as punt options. They are both second and third base eligible on DraftKings. The top guys, certainly not on Pedro Alvarez tonight. That's a nightmare matchup for him against a strikeout pitcher. And not on Matt Carpenter either against a left-handed pitcher that's not an easy target for left-handed batters. So those two guys are kind of off my radar tonight. I think there's so many options there between like 3 and 4K on DraftKings. I think that's where you want to go with your picks tonight. And I really like that trio of guys that's right around the same price in Frazier, Sandoval, and then Headley, if you're not on Travis Wood, I think would be the top batter target for the Padres tonight.
Yep, I'm definitely with you. Frazier is my top option of the night. I love his price pretty much throughout the industry. It's not going to break the bank. And, he's a guy that has so much upside because when he does get hits, they're extra base hits. They're doubles and home runs. Homered last night. Again, another one of these Reds bats that has a great matchup and a guy that tends to hit lefties a little bit better than righties. So I'm all over Todd Frazier tonight. Even so much so that I even might consider plugging him at first base, like you mentioned. It's nice that you have that option because I also do like Pablo Sandoval. He is swinging the bat better. I don't quite know if he's seeing it as well. He doesn't have any walks in his last 10 games, but
he never walks. He just wants to swing.
He just likes to get up there, big panda, and swing the bat. Obviously coming off a couple big games in a row, turning things around. It seems like it's common thing now. We get a slow start from Sandoval, but then he absolutely goes on a tear. So we could be in the midst of the early part of that. At third base, I also agree with you about Headley. He was a guy a couple years ago that had a really great season and really kind of came out of nowhere. Has been really inconsistent since then. I know he's dealt with some injuries. So I would really kind of peg him more as a GPP only play. But the numbers speak for themselves. He does have some good career numbers versus Wood. And, certainly a guy that has the pop to go deep. He's got a couple home runs, 2 home runs in his last 10 games. So, as a GPP option in and around that same price range, like you mentioned, I definitely think that, Headley's in play. If you're going down, you want to save a little bit of money. Obviously, we still don't know if that lineup's out yet, but Luis Valbuena and it has could be a nice GPP option. And I really don't hate Danny Valencia. He's pretty much become their starting third baseman from here on out, at least until they can, get Moustakas going in the minors. I really think that was one of the worst decisions they made, sending Moustakas down. And it's a decision that we've seen so often that I know well as an Angel fan. With guys like Brandon Wood and Dallas McPherson, where you got these uber prospects that don't pan out because they're getting shuffled up and down in the minors, and it really hurts their confidence. So I thought it was a terrible decision bringing Moustakas, throwing him down there. But obviously, they want to get him some at bats. That being said, the main beneficiary of that is going to be Danny Valencia, and now that he's knowing he's going to be playing an everyday player, he's someone that could definitely is definitely in play for me tonight up against an unproven starter, like I said. And he's got a very cheap price tag. So I'm liking Valencia. And if you're looking to punt, and you're not on Strasburg, Josh Harrison, he's leading off again for the Pirates. He hasn't been terrible. I've been using him quite a few times in the past week or so when he's been leading off. And, he's got a lot of speed, so he can steal you a base. So another one of these guys that could be a cheap source of steals if you're looking to punt the position. I don't love the matchup, obviously, against Strasburg. But like I said, if you need that salary relief, he's someone that I definitely think is in play at only $2,600. So anything else you want to add here?
No, I think that's it.
All right, well, let's move on to shortstop.
Can I choose nobody? Is nobody an option at shortstop tonight? It's thin. You've got guys that are a bit highly priced. I mean, if we're solely talking about DraftKings here, Dozier at 5K against a righty, not something I typically endorse. Starlin Castro at 4,600 in Petco Park, not something I typically endorse. Billy Hamilton's not playing tonight against the left-hander. And then you've got a bunch of kind of mid-range guys that are hit or miss. It's iffy at best for me. If there's there's two Cardinal hitters that I really like tonight because we mentioned that Cingrani is a one-trick pony with his fastball. And against right-handed batters, I mean, if you could time him and he misses location with one, if you've got a home run hitter, you've got a solid option at a homer tonight. So the two Cardinal hitters that I really would look to tonight, the first is Matt Holliday and the second is Peralta. And at a thin position tonight, I think Peralta makes a great option, especially for GPPs. He's not going to hit for a high average. But if he can go 1 for 4 with a two-run homer tonight, that'd be good enough production for me at shortstop, a thin position. So he's kind of the guy I would look towards in the mid to high-end range. And there's really not a ton else. I mean, there's a ton of merit to punting the position. If we get some of these lineups that you see who's hitting down in the order. The guy I want to talk about is just the strangest stats this year. And a guy that really got no recognition coming into this season, but he hit the home run off Clayton Kershaw's curveball, which got a ton of press. And, he's only hitting 203. But he's got 8 home runs and seems to be, a guy that's hitting for some pop that you wouldn't expect. Now, maybe it's an early season sample size issue. I don't know. I don't know what to make of him. We talked about him a little bit last night when I was on with EMAC. What in the world do we do with Brandon Hicks? I mean, he's only 3,400, and the Giants are still hitting him towards the bottom of the lineup, which to me, maybe that they don't think he's going to keep it up, or they just like how he's producing down there. But on a really, really crappy night for shortstops, is he in play?
I mean, I certainly think he's in play. Only thing is, for only $600 more, or I'm sorry, $700 more, I would be more inclined to do whatever it takes to pay up for Peralta, because I definitely think Peralta's in a slightly better spot, despite the fact he's going up against, what we would typically say is a better pitcher, Cingrani, than Deduno. But yeah, you're right. It's a difficult one for me, and even when I stack San Francisco, I have a hard time working him into my lineups because he's buried down there hitting 7th and 8th, and it's not like this is a lineup that really lights the world on fire. So it would be nice to kind of see him move up to maybe like a 5th or 6th spot in the lineup. Obviously, we'll see with the lineup out tonight because he did homer last night. But you're right. He's very similar to Johnny Peralta in a number of different ways, in the sense that when they're hitting the ball, they're hitting it for extra base hits. Even Todd Frazier, these aren't guys that are going to hit for average, and they're not going to do it on a consistent basis. But when they do hit, they put together some monster games. And it's guy that came out of nowhere and has flashed some power. So I don't hate the pick at 3,400. Like I said, I would try to do whatever it takes to try and get Peralta in there, because I really do think Peralta is my top option of the night. I did write up about Alcides Escobar. That was with the assumption, I do want to say, that he was going to be batting 2nd. So now that Alcides is back down in 8th, especially on our sponsor DraftKings, I'm not going to pay up $4,000 for him tonight. I just really think that, like you said, I'm not going to pay up for Castro or Dozier at their prices either. And Peralta's in the best spot if you got that salary relief. But hey, I don't hate that Brandon Hicks pick, especially since there's not so much upside, from a lot of these guys going tonight.
Yeah, I actually fit him on a giant stack last night and got the benefit of one of his home runs. So I don't know. I've been off of him and off of him, and like you said, generally when I've been stacking Giants, if he's been hitting seventh or eighth, he's one of the guys I leave out, and then he just hits a random home run. So on a night where the position's relatively thin, I think tonight might be a night to consider him more than most. But who knows? I believe he is hitting. Their lineup just came out a few minutes ago, and I believe he's hitting seventh again tonight. So the thing is for sure with how thin the position is, if I'm stacking Giants tonight, I'll probably find a way to fit him in there. Maybe take out one of their hitters at the top of the lineup just to make things work. But yeah, that's about it for me at shortstop tonight. Just not a whole lot to love with where guys are hitting and where they're priced.
Yeah, absolutely. If you do need to punt the position, Clint Barmes is all the way down there at 2,200. But like we said, similar to Harrison, it's just not an ideal matchup. I actually had him in a couple spots last night, and he had a decent game. But even if Strasburg's not on, he's not one of these guys that's gonna make him pay. So I'm not really in favor of going with Barmes. I just wanted to throw it out there that he's back in the lineup, and he's got a rock bottom price. And if you're not really on Hicks, I really don't hate Danny Espinosa tonight. Another one of these guys that is really boom or bust. And then you got good old Willie Bloomquist.
I was just going to mention him. I peeked at their lineup really quick. He is starting tonight against the lefty.
His home run last night went out by a mere inches.
That's okay. It counts.
Very, very, very smallest part of the park. But hey, it's Willie Bloomquist. This guy is a fan favorite out there in Seattle. He came up with them. I actually liked him when he was on Arizona a couple years back because, while he didn't light the world on fire, he was consistently getting on, and he could steal a back too. So if you're looking to save some money there, I don't hate it. He's batting ninth. But this Seattle team, a couple of these righty bats could definitely get to a guy like Oberholzer. And, good old veteran like Willie Bloomquist, is someone that could have a decent game at a cheap price. Just temper your expectations. Don't expect another home run because that's probably the only one he's going to hit this year. But, hey, it's, at 3K, you really can't go too much worse than that. So is there anything else you want to add to the shortstop position?
Mercy, no. Let's get off of it.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to outfield then. Another one of these thin positions tonight. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely merit in punting one of your outfielders tonight because you have some options. Romero for Seattle, one of my favorite punt outfield targets on nights where Seattle faces a lefty, especially a weak lefty. He's only 2,600 on DraftKings, batting second tonight, so I think you're going to see a fair amount of exposure to him. He was relatively highly owned last night, kind of disappointed in that matchup last night, but I think he's a solid target tonight against Oberholzer, who's winless on the year. You have a couple of Reds outfielders that are mid to low end priced. Ryan Ludwig is back off the DL. He's only 2,900 on DraftKings, kind of makes a living doing well against left-handed pitching. And then you've got Chris Heisey leading off for the Reds tonight. That puts him in a pretty decent spot as well. If you're not on Vogelsong, the Twins lineup isn't out yet, but Parmalee's been batting cleanup. Jason Kubel's been batting fifth. Both of those guys are kind of mid-range price, 3,400 to 3,500. So you could plug one of those guys into your lineup if you want to. The Padres are not throwing out a quality pitcher by any means tonight. So the Cubs, you could have some cheaper guys in play there. Junior Lake would probably be my favorite. He's been batting second lately, and he's only 3,300 on DraftKings. So that's a slew of guys. I mean, between 2,500 and 3,500, that's 6 or 7 guys kind of in the cheap range on DraftKings that you could look to tonight. If you want to look top shelf, again, we talked about it at first base. Surprisingly thin at the outfield position for what you would normally expect on a Saturday night. I talked about liking Holiday against the left-hander who only throws a fastball. Holiday, a very good fastball hitter. 5K on DraftKings is a tough price to pay for him. He's a little bit friendlier priced on a site like FanDuel. But certainly, if you can fit him in your lineup, no problem with that pick at all. You talked about Alan Craig when we mentioned first base. I'll throw another guy out there. If there's one Royals bat that I've been fond of targeting all year long, waiting for the hot streak, it's Alex Gordon. A very highly touted prospect. Really struggled in April and the first part of May, but seems to be turning a little bit of a corner of late. Let's see, where's he batting tonight? Have you seen?
Fourth, cleanup.
Oh, I bet in cleanup. Well, I really like Alex Gordon then tonight. For the price, the mid to high end price tag, he's probably one of my favorite options. And then you have a slew of guys that are kind of multi-position eligible that we've already talked about. We've talked about Bonifacio. Certainly Trout. Guys like Trout. He's always in play. 5,900 is a pretty tough price to pay against James Shields, though, so I don't have too much exposure to him. And then depending on how the Giants' outfield shakes out, I think you'd have solid targets. And guys like Pence is also pretty expensive on DraftKings. I'd probably lean towards Pagan or Morse a little bit there. But it's a relatively thin position for the higher dollar guys. There's certainly a multitude of mid to low-end guys at outfield, which, again, is just kind of weird. But there's targetable guys there, and it helps you fit in guys like Strasburg or Garrett Cole in your lineup.
Yep, I completely agree. And thin one probably wasn't the right description because there's so much value to be had. But you're right at the top. Just not a lot of these big names that we're used to seeing. That would really get you excited to pay up for them. I'm with you that Holiday is one of my top options in the outfield over on FanDuel because of his price, but it's it's pretty tough to warrant paying up 5K for him, despite the nice matchup. It's probably more of a GPP play for me over on DraftKings because I don't think a lot of people are going to be on him, at that price. Obviously, Trout. I got a funny story about Trout here. I'll digress really quick. So Dean yesterday was giving me shit for being all over Jason Giambi, who ended up home
run.
Yeah,
big time.
Yeah, and he anyway. So my buddy came home for work. He works for the Angels, and he said he watched batting practice today, that day, which was yesterday, and he said that Trout walked in the cage for his first round of at bats. I guess the way the Angels do it. I don't know if it was. Whatever was going on, if they just get a free hack round or whatever. But he said Trout walked in there, saw the first pitch he took, he hit it in the exact same spot he ended up hitting his home run, and then he walked out of the cage. He was done for BP for the day. So he was feeling it, you could tell. I wish he would have relayed that information to me before lineups locked. But either way, I did like Trout yesterday. I'm not so high on him today, though. You do get a righty on the mound in Shields, but Trout has been dealing with a somewhat of a groin injury, I believe it was, which kept him out of the lineup for a day. And then you also have the fact that James Shields, he's terrific at holding runners on base, and he's quick to home plate. And then you also got Sal Perez. So I don't expect Trout to steal. That being said, he's always in play because he's the best player in the world. But I did want to bring up that I'm not as high on him tonight. And at 5,900 on DraftKings, if you know he's not going to steal, and he's going up against a tough pitcher, I just don't think it's the best spot for him tonight. Also, you also got McCutchen. His price is up there on DraftKings, and he doesn't have an ideal matchup. I did write up about him. Yeah, and then, I'm sorry, to go back to my point, so the last person I saw do that, take one swing in BP and walk out for the day was Jason Giambi. So it all kind of tied together. Sorry, I forgot about that. But either way, I'm not really on these guys over the 5K range. I'm with you that there's just so much value to be had. You got Alex Gordon at 4,200. I think that's a great price for him in a really nice spot. Even going down even cheaper, you got Aoki. A guy at the top of the lineup had a good night last night. For the Royals, they haven't been doing much, but if Aoki gets on tonight, similar to what I said about Siriaco and even Alcides Escobar to some degree, they're going to be out to the races. They're going to want to push the envelope early against this young starter, Matt Shoemaker. And you got Conger behind the dish. So cheaper source of steals. Aoki is definitely in play for me. And with you on the Minnesota bats, more of a GPP play, even though Parmley's been pretty good of late. And then going down, I could be wrong about this, but I don't think Junior Lake's going to be in the lineup.
You might not. They sit him a lot against righties. I'm
Yeah.
just kind of banking on the fact that he's been hitting better lately, but I'd like to see their lineup. I wish it was out now so we could dissect it a little bit more. But
Yeah, but either way, you do have Nate Shearholtz, Ryan Kalish, and perhaps even Chris Coughlin, as some really cheap options in the outfield that, aren't going to, light the world on fire, but can definitely put together a solid couple hits here and there, perhaps steal a base, maybe score a couple runs, which will definitely allow you to pay up for a lot of these, shortstops, third basemen, and even first baseman that we've been talking about. So I'm liking how much value's out there. I'm also all over Heisey and Ludwig. I love their prices on DraftKings tonight. Also love them on FanDuel where they're rock bottom. But you will have the luxury on DraftKings of taking a risk on these guys because at least they won't burn you if they go for 4 like they can on a site like FanDuel. So the upside's there for both Ludwig and Heisey. Both are candidates to get pinch run for late in that game by Billy Hamilton. But either way, I'm not expecting Jaime Garcia to come out and throw a gem tonight. So targeting some of these cheaper right-handed Cincinnati bats is definitely a wise strategy in my opinion. And finally, last thing I wanted to say, all the way at the rock bottom, you got your boy Shane Robinson, who had a pretty good game the other night against Wade Miley. He was the player of the game, and not again another one of these guys that's probably priced around where he should be. But if you do need to punt the position, he's definitely in play. And then you also got your boy Stephen Romero, 2,600, still cheap. Is he batting second? He's batting second again tonight.
yeah.
It's a weak left-hander. You on him at all tonight?
Oh yeah, for sure. He's my favorite value guy, no doubt. One word of caution, and this is just because I see the Cardinals so much. It's an interesting dichotomy with the Reds bats tonight. Of all the teams that Garcia has faced at least 5 times in his career, his numbers are by far the best against the Reds than any other team. It's very strange, but and a lot of that was back when the Reds would use those lefty-heavy lineups a couple of years ago, and Votto being out tonight too is another lefty bat out of their lineup. So it doesn't change my stance. I still like the Reds bats tonight. But one word of caution: he is 5-2 in 9 career starts with a 2.64 ERA against the Reds. With how much merit that holds, I don't know. I just wanted to throw it out there. But I would give a little more credence to this only being his second start off the DL. The Reds lineup looks a lot different now than it did for a lot of those other 9 starts, with not too many lefties in the lineup. I will say I'm not on Jay Bruce tonight. Found it weird that they still, he's just back off the DL. They still have him in the 5 spot. Bruce has terrible numbers career against Garcia. So the one Reds bat that I would be off would be Jay Bruce. But the others, I still think they're in play. If you notice Garcia's splits against the Reds, a lot has changed since then. So I hope he throws a good game personally, but I think it's the right spot for a lot of those guys tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And a couple quick questions here, if you don't mind, Cards. Tough one for me. Mick Dog wants to know Heisey or Ludwig.
I'd probably lean Heisey because he's leading off. If it's a GPP, though, I might give Ludwig the edge. He hits really well against left-handers, and he's got a lot more power. That would probably depend on game type. A cash game, I'd probably go Heisey with a shot at an extra at-bat in the leadoff spot. But there's also the risk of him getting pinch hit for late. But GPP, Ludwig's got that home run power. And certainly has a nice scouting report on Garcia from all his years against the Cardinals, or with the Cardinals. So GPP, I definitely lean Ludwig. Cash game, I think it's a toss-up.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me because both are candidates to get pinch hit or pinch run for. It's just going to come down to the situation in the game. But Heisey, he's not a guy that has no power. He's got some pop in his bat too. So I would lean towards Heisey on DraftKings because he has the potential to get an extra at bat or two. But if you're on, say, on FanDuel where they're still the same price, I might lean Ludwig because I see him just going deep and perhaps hitting with more runners on base, more RBI opportunities. So that's my take on that. And then one more quick question here. Where was it? I just saw it. Molina, Mauer, or Mesoraco?
I'd probably go with Mesoraco, with Molina second. And another thing where Molina's probably a safer play for a cash game. I think Mesoraco has great upside for a GPP tonight. No, I don't have a problem with any of the three guys, but I think Mesoraco's got the most upside of the three, and the other two are a little bit safer.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap things up here.
Hey, the Cubs lineup is out.
I just said
the Cubs
that.
lineup is out. We got.
I was just gonna get done saying your boy Junior Lake is sitting in a 2-hole.
Yep, but I like Kalish's value too. I love Kalish when they lead him off. We talked about Bonifacio. Bonifacio's out of the lineup tonight, so don't take him. But Kalish in his place leading off, another guy that can steal a base. So I like that punch at the top for the Cubs. An interesting lineup from them tonight. So Kalish and Lake definitely value targets, as we mentioned at outfield.
Definitely. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Also want to wish our colleague Mr. Dan Back, DB730, a happy birthday. It's his birthday today. I'm sure he's out there tearing up the town in Nashville. Probably the reason why the internet's out in the headquarters.
It went out during our show yesterday. It went out during my show with EMAC in the middle of the show, so we blamed EMAC because he always has so many problems with technology. But yeah, went out right in the middle of the show, and but anyway, I second that. Happy birthday, DB. I sent him a message on Twitter this morning. So again, thanks to him, he's provided both of us with an incredible opportunity here. So seconded.
Yep, and one more thing, just enjoy your Memorial Day weekend, everyone. Good luck tonight, and anything else you want to sign off with?
No, good luck tonight, everybody, and have a great weekend.
All right, good luck, Grinders.